Hi, everybody, and welcome to Coaching from the Soul, our talk show looking at the essence of what it is to be human. Feel free to say hi and ask any questions or comments in the chat as we go through our session today, and we'll try to answer any questions as they come up. And for today, I'm going to hand over first to John, who's going to talk about our topic, Connect with Your Essence. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Graham. So I'd like to ask you a question as a starter for 10, as they say. And the question is, where and when in your life do you feel a sense of freedom, peace, love, and joy? And I'll come back to that question as we go through this short presentation or short chat. So the connection with essence, or connection with your essence, is the title of the chat. So I guess we're going to explore what is your essence, and I guess we're going to explore what does it mean to have connection with your essence. So I'll take the what is your essence piece first and ask the question, what is your essence? And I'll try to explain it from the perspective of what I see and feel that your essence is, and my essence and our essence, because I'm going to say it's the same thing. And also have a look at what it maybe isn't. And my first go at what your essence is that it's who we are, it's who you are after you strip back who you think you are, after you strip back who people say you are, after you strip back the normal descriptions of who you are as a human being. You could say it's who you are when you discount your ego. But I could go even further on my understanding of who or what your essence is. And it's the universal energy of life that is manifest within you as another human being. It's manifest within you as you live your life. But it was there before you were formed in the womb, and it'll be there after we leave this body. Now, some people might say, well, that's your soul you're talking about. And I'm quite happy to use the word soul, as your essence is your soul. But I'd also like to introduce you to another word that I've come across in reading about essence and reading about soul and reading about spirituality and in reading about this topic that I'm talking about. And the word is ineffable. And for the first maybe 16 times that I saw the word ineffable written down, I had to go to the dictionary and say, what does that word mean again? And you wonder why you have to go so many times, because what the word means in some of its descriptors is that something is so deep, so profound, so wonderful that it defies description. So in other words, the word ineffable kind of means there's no word to describe what you're trying to describe. So your essence is something that in many ways is so wonderful, so profound, so deep that it defies description. And that's what I'm going to try to do, and that's what we're going to talk about. So there will be some metaphors and there will be some stories. And that's why I'm asking the question, I'm posing the question about where and when do you feel peace and love and freedom and joy? Because I think that's the place where you know you have connected with your essence. When you feel that freedom, when you feel that peace, when you feel that love, when you feel that joy. I know that I feel it when I hold my grandchildren. And I remember the feeling when I held my children, that feeling of just something that I couldn't describe. So I knew ineffable before I knew what ineffable meant. But I also get it with eating a meal with friends, especially if the wine is good. The freedom and the peace and the love and the joy seem to flow quite freely. But I can get it sitting on a beach on my own, just admiring the beauty of the scenery, whether it's just the sea and the waves and the sand, or whether it's a beach with steep cliffs, high mountains, or even a forest behind it. There's such a beauty in nature, so I can get it there. I can get it in lots of places. And for me, that's whenever I have reconnected with my essence. But I'm also conscious of using the word reconnected or connection with essence, because if essence is the universal energy of life, if essence is the energy that flows through us, and that's what I'm saying it is, we're never not connected to it. But guess what? We don't always feel freedom, love, peace, joy, happiness. And that links us back to what we talked about last week, the nature of thought, particularly when thoughts go wild and we get up in our head about thought. It's very hard to feel that connection to the universal energy of life. It's very hard to feel that connection to the wisdom of the world that is part of creation, the wisdom of nature. It's very hard to feel that connection. And that distraction that comes from thoughts that breaks our feeling of connection. I was thinking about it and thinking, is that a flaw in the brilliance of our design as humans? Or is it actually a design that allows us to strive to reconnect, to strive to feel that connection, to strive through life, the fact that we feel we're not connected? Is that the design? Like most of the stuff I'm talking about here, I'm trying to talk from my experience, but I'm also talking about stuff that I won't fully experience until I leave this form, until I leave this particular body. So I'm giving you my perspective as a human, as to what I see as my essence, as to what I see as my soul, and to what I see as this connection and this oneness that we all have. And yet there are times in my life when I don't feel that oneness. And there are certainly times in my life and people in my life who come into my life and out of my life, whether directly or through the news, that I wonder, do they have an essence at all? And I'm saying if it's true for one, it's true for all. That this universal energy of life, this universal wisdom, this creation of peace, love, joy, freedom is there for all of us. It's there for every one of us. And the connection that we have with that is always on. And the experience that we have of that connection is always available to us, except when we think it's not, except when we're so busy to notice, except when life seems to have overwhelmed us. But I go back to my question, if you've ever felt that peace, that love, that joy, that freedom, well then to me that's an experience of your connection. To me that's an experience of your connection with your essence. And to me that's proof that it's there. And it's also proof of the always on and indeed infinite nature of this. Some of the stuff that I look at, some of the material that I look at about spirituality and about essence and about soul takes me into the realm of science, and in particular people like Albert Einstein and people who studied quantum science. And I'd like to read a quote. That's one of my favorite quotes, and it's lying around my desk, and it's from Albert Einstein. And he says that everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of humanity. And that's what I'm pointing to as well as your essence. That's what I'm pointing to, that spirit that is vastly superior to anything humanity knows is in humanity, and yet it's greater than humanity. And I often think that science, with their searching without limits, they're searching with their hypothesis, they're searching without limiting beliefs or beliefs of what they're trying to find, or they're searching without looking for a particular outcome, will stumble upon greater proof of this essence than maybe some religions will do. One of the areas of interest to me when I look at the essence and how powerful and how infinite it is just the size of the universe. When I was growing up, there were 9 planets. We lived in the Milky Way galaxy. That was kind of it. We lived in a fixed universe. And scientists have increasingly discovered, no, we don't live in a fixed universe. And they've discovered hundreds of thousands of planets. And increasingly, they're coming up with models that are starting to show more and more and more that the universe is infinite. So this essence of us, this essence of each one of us that we all have access to, when we get out of our head about our thoughts, when we get out of our heads about the fact that we're not connected, this essence is powerful, it's infinite, and it's in all of us. And in the words of Jack Pransky, who's one of the more famous teachers of some of these principles of what it is to be human, that's what we are at our core. We are peace, love, wisdom, and understanding, and the ability to think we're not. So connection with your essence. Have a think about the last time when you felt truly at home, truly at peace, or truly joyful. That's you connecting with your essence. And know that even if you don't feel that, it's always there, and it's infinite, and it's powerful. And the beauty of the individual nature of being human is that because of our upbringings, because of our DNA, we all express this essence with our own particular flavor, our own unique flavor. So we can be connected as one through this universal energy of life, this universal essence, and still be our own unique individuals while we're in this form. So that's where I want to go with connection with essence. I hope it has resonated with some of you, and I'd love to hear how it has resonated with my fellow transformative coaches.
Thanks, John. Certainly resonated with me, and I love your looking up of the word ineffable, because I certainly learned something there. Deep, profound, and wonderful. Like, that was really, really interesting. And yeah, I can certainly resonate with this idea that it's more accessible when thinking isn't in the way. For me, I think I probably see it more when I'm watching my pets move about the house and looking at them and thinking how intelligent they are, and how do they get, like, how do they figure the things out that they've figured out. So yeah, thank you for that. And we're going to pass across now to Sandy, who's joined us this week as a guest. Welcome, Sandy. Interested to hear your perspectives on the topic.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks, everyone. It's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Actually, I watched all last week, and yeah, really good what you're doing here. And what a great start. Thanks, John. That was actually really it really resonated. And one thing I find actually is when I'm talking about this with people, or when I'm listening to other people talking about this, there's that sense of connection happens anyway. You know, it really emphasizes it. And I too love your the definition of ineffable, because I've heard it several times and guessed at what it meant and got the idea. But yeah, to actually have it there as well is to hear it. Yeah, it's always good. It's always learning. I love learning. So connecting with essence, what it means to me. You know, you asked the question, when was the last time I felt freedom, peace, love, and joy? And it is when I'm connecting with self, when I'm having, to start with, it used to be for me when I would be walking out in nature, and there was just that real connection there. When meditating, what I've come to see over time is that, and goes back to actually when you're saying about ineffable, there are all these different ways that point us in this direction and help us connect with our sense of being, with our essence. And it is like, I heard a metaphor recently about it being like the sun, you know, the sun's always there and you might get clouds that are covering it over, but actually it doesn't mean that the sun's not there. It's just that at that moment it's not shining through. And when we're caught up in our thinking, as you said, you know, we're not as connected to it, not as aware that it's there, but it is there all the time. And putting this into words, you know, words can only point. I can use my words to describe this sense of being, this sense of self, this life force that runs through me. And it's such a, you know, in some respects, it's such a normal feeling. One of the things that struck me when I started looking at this was that it's like I remembered, oh yeah, when I was younger, I used to feel like this. And it was just, oh yeah, it's just being. And I sort of lost sight of that, actually, over time. And it's just such a great thing to realise that it is always there, and I can connect with it anytime. So when I would go out in nature and going for walks and everything, it really helped me connect. And I think for quite a long time, because that worked, and I've heard Michael Neal say this as well, you know, because that works, that's what you go to. So that's what I went to. And I would think that, oh, well, actually, then I need to go into nature to connect with myself, to connect more with this feeling. And so I would use that, and I did sort of treated meditation the same way. But what I've come to realize is that because we've got this within us all the time, and yes, I can use these things, certainly if I'm, you know, going through, if I'm so caught up in my thinking that it's difficult for me to connect with this essence, with this life force. It helps to distract myself, or it helps to maybe get outside and go for a walk or something. But ultimately knowing that it's there all the time, and knowing actually that I can access it all the time, if I just really just drop the ideas, like John was saying, about that it's not there, you know, that somehow when I'm not feeling connected to it, it just somehow disappears. When I let go of that idea, it's actually a lot easier to, I say reconnect. It's an interesting one, isn't it? When you sort of say, I re-notice. I think that's probably a better way for me to say, you know, I re-notice that the connections here. I had experience, it was a while ago now, actually. I was on a train and I just suddenly really got in touch with the fact there were all these other people sat on the train, but we were all sharing this same energy. We were all sharing this same life force. And that was such a profound experience. And it didn't last actually for that long. But just having that and seeing that even for a moment, you know, and I think to start with, that's what sort of happens with me, is I'd glimpse something for a while. And then I'd be caught up in my thinking again and go off. And then I'd glimpse a bit more. And over time, you know, I can spend a little bit more time, not all the time, but a bit more time connected with just being, and in that freedom, that sense of freedom, that sense of peace, and that just that sort of solid foundation, really, that's just means that everything I experience, everything that I look at the world, it's just knowing that it is all there connected. And actually, whatever's going on the surface, the ups and downs and everything, knowing that solidity is there, is always there, then that helps me through the ups and downs. So that's really that's really my sort of the thoughts, my pointing on the with this what essence means to me, really. One of the other things that I saw is that, you know, there are lots of different religions, there are lots of different viewpoints on that, and you've got yoga, meditations and everything, and you've got all the great sages, you know, that have been with us before. Some still are, but they're all pointing to the same thing, and it brings us back to that. But it's something beyond the words, which is why, you know, when I'm listening to people, when I connect, it's the feeling that I get, and that's the essence. It's the feeling of the essence. And whenever I want, whenever I choose, I can put my attention on that. So yeah, I think that's me for the minute on that. So I'll hand back to Graham. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. And yeah, I loved your I love the re-noticing. Like, I think that's a great way of describing it. It's always there, but we don't always see it. And yeah, this idea that the is there, but we don't always see it behind the clouds, like that really resonates. So yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, I saw John Jacob had come up in the comments and just said beautifully said. So thanks, Jacob. Great to have you with us today. I'm going to hand over in a second, I think, to Jen, just to hear a little bit from Jen, just on what's coming up for you. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, as John was talking there, a quote that I've not thought about for years sprang to mind about it was a Sherry Huber quote, I think, that says that the voice inside your head is not the voice of God. It just sounds like it thinks it is. And it got me thinking that how it's the thinking when we're over revving and, oh, that must be our essence and our soul. When in reality, as Sandy so beautifully was pointing to there, it's that our soul is always there. It's just that our thinking can just sound so much louder at times. And for me, the key is to notice and recognize what the difference is for you and what that feels like. Because for me, when I've got that connection with my soul and I'm noticing that it's there, it's like, I use the phrase quite a lot, it's like being wrapped in a duvet of love. It's really safe, it's a lot quieter, but there's a real sense of knowing behind that. And that's, I think the noticing is the key point for me. And that's how I can tell the difference between the two, because there are places where habitually I'm more used to just falling into that and quieting the thinking by water, by the sea. In a theatre auditorium, I quite often quieten that thinking down to sharing that magical space. But that's always there in other places as well. Just sometimes I forget. And then I can remember. So that's what's coming up for me, Graham.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes total sense. I think I was just looking as we were thinking about quotes, like there was one, built out a few as we did last week, like the man who has no inner life is the slave of his surroundings. And for me, that again feels like it talks to this, you know, there's something there, it's there all of the time, but we're better off when we're connected to it. And so yeah, I can be a bit of a thinker, and I certainly resonate with this idea that the clouds sometimes are there, and it can be great to spot that actually there's something else that's there spinning the planets, like that we're all connected to. As I said, looking into the eyes of my cats when they've now figured out how to pull the phone off the bed every morning to wake me up. I'm like, well, how did they figure that one out? Like, isn't that cool? Like, I really like the piece that John, you talked about in terms of this like profound wonder, ineffable, like watching what happens around us. That can be so interesting. I thought as well, I saw another quote that I thought was quite interesting about this kind of idea that when we express ourselves from that soul, just how powerful that can be. This every production of an artist should be the expression of an adventure of his soul. And for me, there's something that says whenever we're connected with that, then there's so much more comes out and I think is felt by other people. So really like that one too. I'm going to bring John, you back in, just interested to know where your mind's at.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Thanks, Jen, Sandy. I love the reflections. And Sandy, you brought us back to when we're younger and we have a lot less on our minds, we're maybe more amenable to noticing that connection. But even when we get older, as you mentioned, that we can re-notice it. And even a glimpse can be enough at times. And you mentioned getting a glimpse, and a glimpse can be enough at times. I'm also very taken by the duvet of love. I really have to go and get myself one of those and see where I can find it. I think maybe your pets, Graham, might be trying to pull you out of the duvet of love so that they can join in there and see that. But I love that sharing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. They've definitely figured out how to do that every morning, which I find like, so comical that they've picked that one out. Where did that intelligence come from? Roisin, I thought I would kind of bring you over and just get your view in it if I could as well. What's coming up for you?
Yeah, just before I share what's coming up for me, I loved that second quote you just shared, and it really struck me as a really nice quote to ponder on in terms of where I've seen in my life, where I've done things from that place of aliveness or connection, or really coming from a wanting of my soul or my essence, and actually notice the effect and the ripple effect of when I've done things from that place versus maybe less effect when I've worked really hard at something, or I've had a goal, or I've had to-do lists and steps to get somewhere. I think it'll be a really nice thing for me to think on after this call, actually, and notice times when I've come from the place of essence, actually the knock-on effects that we like so often can't even imagine, the ripples that kind of acting from that space can create. So yeah, thanks, Graham, for sharing that quote. And I was just thinking, as John and Sandy were talking at the beginning, and it was both like such beautiful things they were saying that really helped me settle and feel connected. And I was thinking, what are like some of the things that I found important and helpful and useful to me in kind of trying to feel and connect with my essence more? And I think one thing is around the importance of language. And Sandy, you mentioned it's not a kind of reconnect, because we never lose connection with ourselves. We never drift away from it. Sometimes I feel like I've felt like before, like I have to get back to that place, or what can I do to feel that again? Or there's stuff to do and stuff to get back to. And I think for me, the importance of the language and how we talk about this is really helpful for me in terms of knowing, like, our essence is just infinite. Like, our essence just is. And there's nothing we have to do or reconnect with or be. So yeah, so when Sandy, you kind of commented that actually it's not a reconnection, I thought, yeah, like the importance of how I speak about this to myself, it was really helped in terms of knowing there's nothing to do, because I am always there, even if I'm feeling like my thoughts a lot of the time. So yeah, I think a second thing that's been really helpful to me, kind of along this kind of trying to reconnect, I've just used that word, but find that feeling of my essence again as well, is noticing how like personal it is and how different it can feel for different people. And it's been so lovely being in conversations like this and learning from people, because I think when I started even learning about the idea that there even was an essence of me or a soul of me, I think I created a lot of rules in my head around what I expected that to look like, what I expected that to feel like, what it should be, how I should act from that place, what I should be doing. And I had so many kind of like rules that I almost didn't even realize. And actually noticing that it's different for everyone. And that's what I think makes this so beautiful and makes us so diverse. And I think that's why it's so special when you see that diversity come together. So realizing for some people might feel really kind of zen or chilled, really settled. Others, it might be like an energy and an aliveness, and noticing the difference for that. So yeah, I just wanted to share, I suppose, those two things that have been helpful for me in kind of understanding more about this, is that the language I use has been helpful to me to learn more about it, and that there isn't a rule as to what acting from my soul or my essence or what that feels like has been helpful. So yeah, thanks, Graham.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's certainly something about the language, and also how the aliveness can be infectious too. There's something about the infectiousness of that. I'm going to bring Jen back on just to, I know Jen has something more to say just on our quote, which I'll bring back up, and then we'll hear from Edwin and Noki. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, it was very much picking up on the language side of it, just for the fact that for me, I love that this quote points towards that you can use be it art or any other thing that we're doing as an expression of our soul. But I think it's the should be in the quote that makes it sound like that can be turned into another rule in our thinking that we can then beat ourselves up with if we're not feeling that connection for any moment, which for me always makes it harder to notice my soul, my essence underneath all that. So if I was just to tweak that, if I could be cheeky enough to tweak a 20th century playwright's words there, I'd tweak that instead of should be, as can be. That can be the expression of the adventure of our soul.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Edwin, what's been coming up for you in today's conversation?
I love how John opened up the segment with that question, and had this feeling of that connectedness just in this space that we have created right now. And then something else that I've heard before, but I heard it different this time, is that connection and that connectedness is, that essence of that connection is always within us. We just sometimes don't notice it. And that it feels to me reassuring. And the other thing that's coming up for me is that when I talked about connecting with my essence, to me it's about living authentically. Like, it's about honoring my inner guidance. Because when I live in alignment with my essence, I experience greater purpose and fulfillment in my life. When I connect with my essence, I'm listening to my inner wisdom. I trust my own intuition, my inner guidance, even when it leads me down to an unconventional path. When I listen to my wisdom within, it feels like I can navigate life with much more clarity and authenticity, regardless of any external pressures of influences. And that is great to know.
Thank you, Edwin. I'm going to bring Noki in as well and just kind of get his perspective on the conversation we've been having today. Over to you, Noki.
Thanks everyone for your sharing and opening up there, John. To me, in the end, there's no words to describe the essence. And any words that we put towards it brings us away from it. If I were to we're kind of living in the cosmic essence. We're swimming in the cosmic essence. And we are this cosmic essence. Yet we think we are somehow not part of it. It's kind of like a water molecule saying there's this thing called the essence of water, going around to other water molecules saying, do you know this thing called water? And everyone's saying, well, no, can you describe it to me? But we're in it. How do you describe something that we're in it? That we're just always in it. And our thoughts certainly kind of try to describe this essence. But in the end, the spiritual masters always say there's just no words. And we're all pointing towards it. And it's more of a kind of a state of being, if I can describe it as that. So if I were to say when I've experienced it, like where I'm the essence, my experience has been is that when I hang out with people who are so close to it, they're so in it, I reverberate with it or I resonate with it, and I'm at that state. Oh, it's always temporarily. And what is that state? You know, the only way I can describe it is I point up at the sky and say that, with no stars, no clouds. That if you can be at that state, no thoughts, absolute silence. It's like a vacuum of thoughts or a vacuum of descriptions. And in that state, there's no need to describe anything. It is a pointing towards it, though.
Thanks, Noki. I'm very much feeling the feeling there, listening to that. So Very much appreciate that share. I'm going to hand over to Roisin again, just for a bit of a thought about a quote that resonates with her, and then coming towards a close today, and I'll talk about what's happening next week. So thanks, Roisin.
Thanks, Graham. Thank you. Yeah, I'll keep it quick, but it's one of my favourite quotes, and I think I come back to it time and time again because I see it and hear it kind of differently. But it's by Howard Berman, and it says, "Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is more people who have come alive." And to me, like, that's what our essence is. That's what it's saying. We should follow, trust, live in, surround ourselves by living in our essence and from our soul. Yeah, so while people have been talking today, that's one that's just been coming up for me. So I thought I'd share that.
Thank you. Yeah, I've heard that quote before, and it's such a beautiful quote. So thank you to everybody who's contributed to our session today, and to those people in our audience too. We'll be back at the same time next week to talk about seeing beyond illusions. So I'm looking forward to that, and yeah, I hope you can take some of the feeling of the essence and re-noticing of it from our call and take it with you for the rest of the day. Thanks, everybody.